Yeah. Score.
Score. What are you going to say?
I think the best thing to do is to ignore Peter.
Okay.
Pretend we're just having a conversation, and that's about it. Today we're in the studio of Joyce Savre, and we're going to talk to her about her work.
This is my home away from home.
Yeah. I'm always struck by what a rich environment it is, and it's, you know, maybe it takes a fellow collage crazy like myself to appreciate that, but there's something about there's so much potential here and things in the act of becoming, and then, you know, hints of stuff, and it's just I always get excited. How do you figure out where the rest of the world or your studio ends and your piece begins?
Ooh. Well, it depends upon what size I'm working on. And right now I'm working smaller because I run out of space, basically. So actually I've been able to work in just this amount of space. Now if I had to, if I start reworking old things, which I do all the time, pull it down, then I'd probably either put it on that wall or I'd put it on the floor, but because I like working on the floor a lot. So it's almost more important to have floor space than it is to have wall space. But I don't know. You hope they kind of come together. They know the outside and the inside.
How recent was this one?
This is actually about 6 years old. And I actually, this is one of those sort of impulse paintings. I was working on something on a landscape with crop circles, much more defined, like from this series here. But it got so, I don't know, it got more stiff, more, I just couldn't kind of get out of myself. And I just felt like I was down in Ventura at the time, and I just felt like using part of the palm trees and what was in my world right then, because this seemed like so far away, and this was like right now. And I just stopped this series completely, and I took a few canvases and I just started working, and then I put them under my desk when I was done, and I went back to this because I have this idea that you're supposed to stay with what you're working on, and then if you get an idea, you write that down, and then months later, you go pick that up. But sometimes you just have to do it like right then. These were like my notes. This was my note about what I want to do in my next series. So instead of writing it down, I worked it.
And to the extent that there's writing in there, is it is it relevant to the image? Is it important that we be able to read it? Is it part of the title?
No, the reading, I never expect anyone to read anything
that's good.
That's on the canvas.
It's good to can't read it.
It's just a symbol for words and language, and that's what we have as civilized people. And
do you have like a particular word when you're writing something in mind, or sometimes?
Well, often I'm working from that poem Allegro by Thomas Tranströmer. He's a Swedish poet, and I've used his poem for years. I asked Robert Bly Robert Bly's translation, and I wrote to him, and he gave me permission to use his translation. So. And I told him that sometimes some of the words will be visible and sometimes not. But he said, with my blessing, he said, because he loved the marriage of the arts, the visual and the word. So Allegro begins, after a black day, I play Haydn and feel warmth in my hands. After a black day, I play Haydn and feel warmth in my hand. The keys are ready, kind hammers fall. The sound is green, spirited, full of silence. And it goes on and sometimes I just get to, after a black day, I play Haydn and feel. You know, so sometimes it's a phrase from there, sometimes it's the whole poem. And but for years, that's often what I write. And Walt Whitman, poetry from Walt Whitman.
So what can you tell us about this one?
Well, you know, when I first began working with language, I embedded it in the layers of collage. And it'd be a phrase, it'd be maybe a line or two, or a word hidden or a letter hidden. And then eventually, over the years, the language became the subject. And this is an example of the language becoming the subject of the painting. It was no longer just a suggestion. It's just like I just wanted the language to be out there. This is about words. This is about what we have.
So it's not background. It's foreground.
Yes, it is. It's foreground. House of glass, standing on a slope. Rocks are falling. Rocks are rolling. Rocks roll straight through the house, but every pane of glass is still whole. And see, that's, I mean, it's like for collage, right? For collage artists, broken yet whole. It takes all of those pieces to make a whole. Like I said, I'm kind of running out of room, so I decided to work small, like on 12 by 12. And I think it's a continuation of my aerial Minnesota landscapes. Those, you know, from here, and these pictures, and those, You want me to hold this one? This is an example of what I'm talking about, the origins. This is Minnesota, landscape in the winter, overview and aerial view.
And where are you from originally?
Minnesota, yeah.
Where in Minnesota?
Moorhead, small town just south of Winnipeg. Fargo and Moorhead is a twin area, just like Menlo Park, Palo Alto. So a lot of people, when I'd be taking a blood pressure, they'd say, "Have you seen the movie Fargo?" Because they can hear it in my voice, I guess, even though I'm from Moorhead. But basically, it's the same place. A lot of Scandinavians up there. So, but that's part of the issue, is that this is what we have. We have words. So my whole theme, like the one behind you, there's words, not war. Diplomacy, negotiation. We need to use our language. So this one here, this is a huge N from the knot. I did one for each letter. This is the N, for example, and then there's 6 more. And I should probably bring them to the Peace Justice, see if they would like to hang them there. But this was done like in 2001. This is before we went into Iraq, actually. So it's sort of a poster, and so there's all these wonderful N words, niece, night, gnomon, the noble, negotiation, knob, necklace, narrate, nation, naturally, natural history. Anyway, so it's all beautiful N words. Nebula.
Is everything you do series based, or do you just do things as one-offs, or just?
Is everything a series?
Yeah.
I think so. One is just done from the last one, and or like coming back to these and pulling them out. Yes, one painting just leads to the other. Right. I've never had like a period where I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Because it's evolving, and your interest is largely in watching that evolution, right? In some ways.
Yeah, I think so. Because I began with watercolor then I started tearing up the watercolor and went into collage. Discovered Romare Bearden, who is my, for me, I know a lot of collage artists love. They'll say Rauschenberg right away or Schwitters or whatever, but Romare Bearden to me was the one who really excited me. The beauty of his people and his story and. So, this is like, that's bigger pieces, more color, and, but anyway, so then from collage, there was a teacher that I wanted to take classes from, and she only taught acrylic, so I began acrylic. So, that's, I'll say, I'll go with this to follow, and that was Helene Barber, so. Anyway, and then the subject kind of leaves and language took over.
This one on the easel. I'm really struck by it's the flip-flopping of the white and the black. Or it seems, they're white letters, but sometimes they're legible, sometimes they're into the white and they disappear.
It's just the physicalness of painting.
Right.
And that was actually painted with a brush and some medium that I almost sang with and conducting with. But I was floating above the painting and letting it fall onto the painting. But again, it's that physical loveliness of writing. It's called Words in Water, and I don't know. I think it's finished. I painted this some years ago, 5, 6 years ago at least, and it's just that flow. It's that flow of language, and it's the hopefully captures some of the rhythm of water. It's the rhythm, the repetition. It's like the landscape. It's the fields. It's the rows of wheat. It's the rows of corn. The rows of barley. And it's the wave after wave after wave. There's some repetition, and that's very comforting in some ways. But I think writing is like that. It's a repetition, and I don't know. I mean, actually, when I think of it, I had one of my kids' letters on the wall, framed for years, and it was when he learned how to write, and it would be the letter K, over and over and over, and you could see it first, and it was large. The teacher was smart. She had the kids write on each other's back, like you'd turn your back, and then they'd get into the physical and stuff, and then you could see on that letter K in script, in cursive, in pencil, in pen, in black color, and red color, and blue color, and I remember thinking, so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Just that, the rhythm, the repetition of the letters. So, I'm sure most people from all countries feel that way about their language. Obviously, you think of the Chinese doing their calligraphy and how they love that. So.
Well, as you say, we may be slowly losing it.
Yes. Is it possible? Is it possible? I hope not.
Well, people write poems and novels on their cell phones, I've heard.
Oh, yes, of course.
I don't particularly want to myself.
Yeah, that used to be a big conversation in my poetry group. Is did you write it in hand, or did you write it at the computer, or at the typewriter? It used to be the typewriter. Could you actually do that? Because people who write it by hand, like laying on their bed or whatever, can't believe somebody could start a poem on a typewriter.
Sure.
At one time, that seemed unimaginable.
It seems so almost clinical or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. So, what was the question, Peter? Oh, how did I start?
How did you begin with visual art? Because your background was poetry before that.
Yes. Well, because I came to painting by way of poetry. I got so much in my head in the line break and finding the right word, and I actually thought I was going to lose it. I thought I was going to float away. I became unaware of my physical body, so I picked up the brush and I started painting, and that grounded me immediately. It's like, okay, I could feel the earth, I could feel that brush in my hand, and I just went to it. And everything I had learned about the creative process in writing, learn all the technical stuff and then forget it all and do your own thing. It applied to painting as well. So it felt right, and it felt like I'd been doing it for a while, even though I had not. I mean, I was 30-some before I picked up a brush, and but the process of creating and making was familiar. It was very familiar. So anyway, so I began with watercolor, and I did what everybody does with the the flowers and the landscapes, and I did a series of buffalo. I did a series of cups because my dad had a coffee shop, and I did a series of, and somebody said to me, well, my dad had a bowling alley, but I didn't do bowling balls. I always thought, well, you don't get it. But there's something about the cup. The cup is in service. The cup is in its constellation. The cup is huge. And I remember asking somebody when Starbucks came along, do I have to stop making the cup? And because it's everywhere now, and it had been so important to me. And she said, no, don't. Art is fair, she said. Just continue. If it's important to you, you just continue with it. So I started with watercolor, and then I began tearing up the watercolor, and I went into collage, and then there was a teacher that was so wonderful, Helene Barber, and I wanted to take her class. She only taught acrylic, so I began acrylic and a canvas, and but I still was doing more representational, recognizable images, and for the most part, I thought they were recognizable. A lot of people didn't, because already I had, started breaking the rules right away. I mean, you just do, you just can't. When I'd see a book on watercolor paintings, stages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I liked number 2. I would stop at 2 and say, why bother with the rest? Because that held my interest. The strokes, the movements, what they were doing. Yeah, the freshness of it. So, so I would find instructors that believed in doing the demonstration and then say, forget what you just saw. Look at your 6-year-old and do what he does.
Oh, yeah. So how did the writing emerge from that into the art?
Well, because when I was doing the watercolor, I began writing, and what came to me was a handwriting that when I was probably like 4 or 5, that I would pretend I knew how to do cursive because I wanted to. I had older brothers and sisters.
Sure.
So I pretended to do that, and I didn't, to do something I didn't know how to do. And it came back into me when I was working, just spontaneous. And so then it began as that undecipherable script, and then eventually I moved into actual words, poetry, Walt Whitman's, whatever. But that's how it began. It began in the layers of the collage on paper, and then, like I say, eventually it became the subject. The language and the poem, words became the subject.